Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Rise and Recreate podcast, a place where we hear stories of reinvention, strength, resilience, and we find the power that we all have within ourselves to recreate our lives at any time that we feel the pull. I'm your host, Raechel Shanny, and today I am joined by Dr. Mandy. Mandy is a chiropractor, a functional medicine practitioner, and transformational coach who calls herself a midlife alchemist. After decades in survival mode, including long COVID and burnout, which I think a lot of us can relate to, she reinvented both her life and her business. Now she guides women in midlife who are tired of chasing fixes and ready to reclaim their freedom, joy, and power. Mandy, thank you so much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. So before we dive in to your journey, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you are today.
Yeah, so I am a former chiropractor turned mind-body mentor for women going through midlife. So I help high-achieving women who are done with the fix-it hamster wheel reclaim their energy, their hormones, and their inner authority without outsourcing their power or sacrificing their nervous system. So my work is 100% virtual, and it blends a lot of functional medicine, functional nutrition, trauma-aware nervous system coaching, and slow living design.
I love that. Thank you so much. So it sounds like right now, I mean, based on your smile and telling me everything you do right now, that you feel pretty aligned with where you're at currently. But take us back to when you were practicing, when you were practicing chiropractor and what your mindset was like then and how you were feeling in that version of your life.
Yes, so we're going to take a journey back to 2020, that wonderful time. Um, so going into chiropractic for me, it was a career pivot in my late 30s. I was in biomedical research before that. So I've always kind of been in male-dominated industries, which is really tough for women. And if you want any kind of feminine flow in your life, you can forget about it.
Mhm.
So I'm in this male-dominated chiropractic industry. At that time, I'd been a chiropractor for 5 years. I'd had a couple of businesses. Then I moved states. So I had reopened my business about a year before the pandemic hit. And I was in that, like, I'd hired the business coaches. I was going to have $1 million business. I don't know why. I didn't need $1 million business, but it was like the check mark, right? Like, okay, I've made it if I have a 7-figure business. And you never think about, like, well, what's the overhead to get there? And, what's the cost? So March of 2020 hit, and I was in one of 3 states in the country where they shut down chiropractic, and in a year-old business, right? And so I was in that ramp-up phase in my business where, like, you're hustling, you're working really hard, and you're like, when I hit this point, I'm gonna make my first hire, I'm gonna slow down. But as most women know, we never really get to that point. It's like an imaginary finish line that keeps getting moved, right? Well, I hit that. Well, I got more stuff to do. And we're always kind of overworking. And I just remember that moment in March of 2020 when, as I like to say, I got pushed off the treadmill.
Hmm.
And I was just like, first of all, I had migraines every Friday. This never occurred to me that, like, maybe you're overworking, that you have a migraine every Friday. To me, it's just like, well, I guess I need to get adjusted on Friday. Not that that didn't help, but there was more to the root cause of that. I was, exhausted on the weekends. I was getting done with a long day at my office and then going to networking meetings and really not just like managing my energy well. Like I could have been more selective about where I chose to market. But when I got pushed off that treadmill, I remember sitting at home in March of 2020 and saying, I cannot get back on this treadmill. And that is when I was 45. That's when perimenopause caught up with me. So I'm not sleeping through the night like many of us experience in perimenopause. Of course, I'm a true type A woman. I'm originally from New Jersey, so part of the country that loves to be type A. And and I'm like, well, my solution, if you're tossing and turning at 1 o'clock in the morning, was to train for an ultra marathon. Because that's
Oh
what
my
normal people
gosh.
do, right? Yeah. So just put on your running sneakers and go run 10 miles in the middle of the night if you can't sleep. Made all my hormone stuff worse. Then came the depression and all the other things that a lot of us experience in perimenopause. And I just knew, like, I cannot do this to myself anymore, and I didn't want to. So it took a lot of time of recreating and, soul searching and figuring out like, great, now what does it look like? Because I just knew I couldn't, it wasn't going to be sustainable. And then it just happened that 2 years later, an opportunity fell in my lap. This was literally, I had an energy healing session in the morning, and this vision came to me that I'm going to sell my practice. And I'm like,
Oh,
I have no idea what I'm doing. The next day, I had lunch with a friend, just a colleague, another chiropractor. And I said, I think I'm going to sell my practice. And she's like, I'll buy your business. And that was it. It was done. Like,
that quick.
yes, it was meant to, that was divine intervention and allowed me to step into this online role because at the time I was doing both. I was doing functional medicine and coaching virtually and running a brick and mortar. And at 45, like you just can't do all that. You're running two businesses and it was too
Mhm.
much. So this allowed me to fully step into what I was being called into.
So this is fascinating, and I heard a lot in here that I want to dig into. But before we go forward, I actually want to go back a bit more because it sounds like your transition from being a chiropractor into what you're doing now. Um, it sounded like you really tapped into your body and listened. Like our bodies know before our minds know. But when you stepped from your prior job into being a chiropractor, was this more of a mental decision of I'm tired of this job and I want to step into this job? Take us back a bit further and tell us what made you make the transition into chiropractic in the first place.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of our business decisions get fueled by our personal lives.
Hmm.
So in when I made the decision to go from biomedical research to chiropractic, I was going through a divorce. My first marriage ended in divorce. And it was kind of that like questioning myself. And at the same time, like, you're going through a personal crisis. You're not showing up as your full self. And the lab I was in, they started talking about, oh, well, we're going to lose some funding. So we're going to have to lay some people off. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like, I'm not performing optimally. I'm going to be the person cut. And it was right around Christmas that year. It was 2010. And I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And I had chosen like the highest level research lab in my field that I could find. I'm always a go-getter. And I was kind of pigeonholed into doing a lot of research, like mouse research and stuff like that. But I felt like I was just like, here's this stuff, go get us results. I didn't feel like I was really making a difference. And I
Hmm.
really missed human interaction. And I wasn't interacting with humans, I was interacting with lab animals. It's very different. And so then I started soul searching again. And this is where it's very interesting how things come full circle. So I'm a biochemist at heart. Like that's what I did my undergrad in. And I was living in Colorado at the time. And naturopaths at that time were not licensed physicians in Colorado. So I was like, well, that's a lot of debt to go into for naturopath school to not, I looked at that as not being taken seriously when you got out of school.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid I wasn't going to be able to pay off my student loans. So I thought, well, I'm a runner. Chiropractic keeps me running. I'll just go to school and do chiropractic and work with runners. And I should have followed my heart and done the naturopath school because biochemistry is my thing. And now here I am doing
Hmm.
functional medicine and
Hmm.
coaching, almost more of a naturopathic thing than a
Yep.
chiropractic thing. Although I'm always grateful for my journey because chiropractic taught me about the nervous system. And I think that piece would have been missing from my education.
So I love this, and I'm glad we went back even further because, there, even though, so it was like your mind, your body, everything's connected, right? And your heart knew that you wanted to go into that field of like alternative medicine and helping people in a different way. But your logical mind was like, this isn't safe. And I really just want to point out that there is no wrong decision. There's just redirection. So you could have made that choice then. And, maybe you weren't ready to step into that path. So you took this side road of going down, being a chiropractor, figuring things out, but it still led you back to where you were meant to be. So it's really important for people to realize that it's okay. You're not making a wrong choice. Like it's still a part of the journey. It's going to unfold in a beautiful way. But take us back to, I mean, did you notice when you were doing that there was a slight disconnect? Did you feel that your body wanted to do something else and you kind of overrode that with your mind?
Not yet, because I'll talk about my major, it would be my second time with ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. I didn't know what I know now the first time, so I was just like, "Oh, I have this virus and it's causing me to be tired." The second time, I knew what was happening. That occurred in chiropractic school, and I truly believe I needed to put myself in that pressure cooker to have this kind of awakening. So it was a
Mhm.
super expensive lesson, but hey. So I think at that time that I chose chiropractic school, I was still in that achievement mindset. Like I say, my ego had to go get a doctorate degree. Um, I at the time when I was in biomedical research, the other path was go get your PhD, right? I had to have doctor before my name. Like that was just my ego was like, well, it's that thing us women do when we don't feel good enough, right? We collect all these outside things. For me, it was education, certifications. Let me collect all these letters after my name and then I'll
Mhm.
finally feel good about myself. And it's not
Mhm.
true.
Nope.
But again, that awakening happened in chiropractic school, which wouldn't have happened. So my adrenals completely burned out in the first year of chiropractic school, mostly because I was drinking coffee all day, sleeping 4 hours a night on purpose, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go run hills and stuff in Portland, Oregon. Like it was just insane. I don't know how long I thought I could have kept up this pace. And then my adrenals crashed, my hormones went offline. So I was 36. I kind of hit what looked like early menopause, but it wasn't early menopause for me. It was more of like a secondary amenorrhea, which means amenorrhea means your period goes away. So, like, but I was having night sweats and all that stuff that menopausal women get because my hormones literally were crashing to menopause levels. And at that age, I still had hoped I could have a baby. That did not end up happening, but can't get pregnant if you're not ovulating. So that became
Mhm.
enough of a motivator for me to change my life. So while in chiropractic school, I traded running for restorative yoga and meditation, which
Yeah.
anybody who's a type A person knows that is really hard. I gave up coffee, 100% quit coffee in grad school and drank dandelion tea instead. And I was in Portland, Oregon, like the mecca of alternative healing. So I sought out a lot of alternative practitioners. And that is when I say women's health found me. That's where I
Mhm.
made the pivot from I want to work with high end athletes. Because before that, I was like, women, I have no time for this. Like, women are drama. I don't want drama. I'm not going to have all my friends were men, the typical thing, right? And that's where women's health found me. And I remember taking a course in pelvic floor work because in the state of Oregon, we can do internal pelvic work as chiropractors. So that was a big part of my practice in Portland, Oregon for the years I was there. And I just remember crying, being in this circle of women because I had never felt so held
Mhm.
and supported by women before. It was always, I'm in male dominated industries meeting other women, right? And we're all competing with each other and
Mhm.
we're all like kind of, pushing each other down to climb up
Mhm.
and that kind of scenario. And there was this whole other world of how the feminine flow, right? Of how women could just lift each other up and support each other instead of trying to push each other down. So that was the awakening that needed to happen.
That it really is true, and I think so many women can relate to that just belief of it's not safe to be around a lot of women. There's a lot of competition, cattiness, gossiping, all of the things. And when you slow down and you really do get around a group of women, you realize, what was I thinking? Why did I create this belief, and why did I keep myself in that belief so long? And that does tend to also happen in male dominated fields where we feel like we have to prove ourselves because we already feel lesser. That's where the worthiness aspect comes in. So that I think everybody can deeply relate to that. So you were 36 at the time, right? And I think this is
Mhm.
very important to call out too, because a lot of our programming is have everything figured out in your 20s, go to school, know exactly what you're doing, set up your life, live very linear. And I think everybody's starting to realize, wait a second, life is not linear. You never know what's going to happen in your personal life that will make you pivot. You never know. And it typically is personal things like health, divorce, wealth, all of these things that make us do career pivots. But I mean, what were your beliefs about that, being 36 and feeling like I'm starting my life over. Am I too late? Did you have any of those kind of thoughts?
I honestly didn't at that time. I was like, okay, I'm going to graduate. I actually graduated chiropractic school 2 months before I turned 40. And I was like, great, I'm going to start my life in my 40s. It was kind of 10 years later. So I just turned 50 this year. And this was the first time I was like, oh crap, I'm supposed to have it all figured out. I'm supposed to have my wealth set. I mean, I have friends that are in corporate America that are like, I could retire tomorrow and be fine. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't take that path. But I also didn't like, while I burned myself out in patches, I'm not I'm not as burned out as some people I know, and whatever. Like, it's just it's just money. Like, it's our life path. Like, I really believe, like, my soul is on this journey and, like, things are gonna work out. Like, I believe that on a good day. And on a bad day, I'm sitting here going questioning my life choices, going, "How are you 50 and you still don't have all the answers and you don't have everything figured out?" But you know what? Women in their 60s and 70s don't have it all figured out either, so
But really, and that's so refreshing too. Like, there are always options in life. And I think what it comes down to is you need to do what makes your heart and your soul happy. I have a similar path. I was in the corporate world. I burnt myself out. And I was like, that's just not worth it to me to live my daily basis in a feeling of so much dissatisfaction. And so now we can kind of get to where you are now. And so you started your own business. You had experience starting the chiropractic business by yourself, but walk us through that journey of like stepping into being a business owner and what that felt like, and leaving like a steady paycheck behind to really bet on yourself. Take us through that.
yeah, so you think, "Oh, I graduate with this 4-year degree and I'm going to just slap up my sign and it's all gonna work out." They don't teach you any business skills in chiropractic school. I took a few seminars they offered, and they were basically like, how to open a business bank account, what is an LLC? Like, it wasn't anything to really teach me how to market and put myself out there.
Mm-mm.
And so, yeah, that was hard. And at that time, so when I graduated chiropractic school, I decided I wanted to work with women and babies. And that was a skill that was not taught in school. So now I'm trying to learn this clinical skill that I don't have a lot of confidence in because I haven't done a lot of it. And I'm also trying to learn to be a business owner. So I had my own business for a few years and then just said I had an opportunity fall in my lap to be an associate at the top prenatal and pediatric chiropractic office in Portland, Oregon. And I took it and I did that for a year because I was like, let me just work on my clinical skills for a while and figure out the business ownership later. And
Uh-huh.
that's after that job, I moved back to Colorado in 2018. And that's when I really started taking more business trainings and was like, all right, we're going to rent the big space. We're going to do this. And, and as I said, a year into that, 2020 had other plans for me. But yeah, it's really hard and it starts to make you question your confidence. And then you do what most women do. You start collecting certifications. I have so many certifications. I could probably fill 4 pages on a resume because if I get this certification, I'll be successful. And you end up blowing money that you don't need to spend. But I always look at things from a positive lens and say, I learned something in every situation. Maybe the ROI isn't as high as what I spent, but I always learn something. I'm never not learning. But yeah, like nobody really teaches you how to be a business owner. And I think it's more challenging for women because we're the pleasers and the fixers, right?
Mhm.
Like we're not kind of taught these business skills. It's just like, well, I want to make everybody like me. I want to make everybody happy. That's the awesome thing about midlife. I will tell you that as you start to transition into menopause, and I'm currently probably in late perimenopause, I don't know, knock on wood, it's been like 90 days. Maybe we'll just, in a year, I can tell you I'm fully in menopause and we're just done because I'm ready to be done with that roller coaster. But your brain chemistry actually changes in menopause when your hormones drop off and you actually stop caring as much what other people think, the parts of your brain. Because when we're in kind of that mothering role, right, we have to care about what everyone else thinks, and bred to read our baby's cues and things like that. And as we get into this stage of life, that's when we truly can be more selfish and we can step into being leaders in our community. But the brain changes to not care as much about the people pleasing aspect, which is why I think so many women have this midlife meltdown of like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living with no boundaries and people pleasing and feeling like not enough. Like you are just ready to shed that skin. Except there's nobody in society saying, well, there's very few, I do it, but there's very few leaders in our society saying, let me show you what that looks like. Let me help you walk that path.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very important to learn from other people who've walked a bit before you. And that's why I started this whole podcast, is because I truly believe in the power of learning through stories. And when you find someone who, has a belief that you're like, wow, like I'm fascinated by the way this person really believes everything's going to work out, you can tap into that too, and you can create that belief for yourself. And I'm curious because you said, there wasn't too much questioning yourself when you were transitioning through careers. And I'm curious if it's because you had such a strong vision, like you knew exactly what you wanted. And so therefore there was no deterring from that path. You had a very strong vision. And I think something to point onto is a lot of people are kind of stuck in well, I don't really know what I want. And even if you do know what you want, you say you don't know because it's easier than confronting your inner self and realizing, like, why do I think I can't have this thing I want? It's easier to just say, I don't know. So do you have any advice for people on how to like tap in and create that vision of what it is they might want?
Yeah. So it's getting in touch with your why. Like, write it down, journal it. And some people get so like, oh, I don't like journaling. If you don't like writing, you can type it, you can speak it, you can just get it out. But what is your big why? Like, my big why really was to help people, to heal people, and at the same time, from a business aspect, like to build my wealth. Like, okay, I'm entering my 40s, coming out of spending my 30s, doing a lot of schooling. So, okay, let's hit the ground running here. So I
Hmm.
had pretty big whys and I just anchor back into that. And they think, coming out of chiropractic school, sometimes it's almost like we have to put those blinders on. Like it's easy to know what you don't know. Like I thought being an entrepreneur was going to be a lot easier than it was. I think when I switched from the brick and mortar to the online business, I think I got my butt handed to me a lot more times and started to question like, "Ugh, do I really know what I'm doing here? Is because I honestly thought I built a brick and mortar. I built more than one, so I can do that again, right? But building a brick and mortar and building an online business are totally different. And, that's the other piece of it. Stay open, stay curious, stay open to learning what I need to know. Don't get so stubborn. Don't put your blinders on so hard that you're like, oh, well, there's only one way to do this because there's more than one way to do it. And tapping into your why and your vision will help you find your authentic voice. Because
Hmm.
I think that's the key we miss in businesses. When I was a chiropractor, I bought so many chiropractic marketing things. I mean, they're out there. They teach you how to write a care plan, they teach you how to get people in the door, and none of it felt authentic.
Hmm.
And people react to that when they feel like you're just reading them a script. They respond to that. And they're like, I don't know why I'm repelled, but I'm repelled by this, right?
Yeah.
And when I got more authentic, I attracted the right clients in, and it's not even selling anymore. It's just like having a conversation. And if we're a good fit, great. And if we're not a good fit, hey, that's okay too.
Hmm. It's interesting about the repelling because it's like you're doing all this marketing that doesn't feel like you. You don't like it. There's probably a disconnect in your body of, gosh, this is so silly, but I guess I'll do it anyways. This is what everybody says I need to do. So you didn't really even believe in it. And people pick up on that. People feel that energy. And then they're like, I'm good. Without it's all unconscious. We don't even know that's happening. So you said when you pivoted to the online space and all of those fears came up of what the heck am I doing? Can I do this? Why did I do this? What were some tools you used to help you kind of quiet those fears and keep pushing forward anyways?
Yeah. So the other part of my journey has been in 2023, I got what I think is my first COVID infection and then ended up with long COVID. And that was made worse last year when I got my second COVID infection. So I've been dealing with long COVID. I wouldn't say it's ever been like, I haven't blessed by, I'm not bedbound, like it's not super severe, but it's enough that like I can't function at, the level I used to function at, which is fine. I'm still functioning at an okay level. But when you're used to being a high performer, it's really humbling to be down here, right? So the tools I use to help with that actually can translate over into business because you just realize like your capacity is not there. Like I don't have time for the fluff. And then you throw the midlife stuff in there and I don't want the fluff. So I don't have time to join 15 networking groups that I'm just wasting my time in. Like I have to be selective about where I spend my time and my energy. And that helps me get really crystal clear on what I'm doing. So there's that. Then I use a ton of nervous system regulation tools. And it's interesting that I'm a chiropractor and we talk about the nervous system, and that is the hardest thing for me to do. Like, I exercise. That's no, I mean, I was an athlete, right? Like, I actually have to exercise less. I have to hold myself back sometimes so I don't overdo it. I've been a healthy eater since I was a child. I was gluten-free before it was cool to be gluten-free, so I've been gluten-free since I was 5. So, like, these kinds of things are more ingrained for me, but the nervous system regulation, I mean, I'm a type A woman, right? We don't like to meditate or slow down. So, those are the things that, like, I have to force myself to do. Getting outside, seeing the sun, grounding myself with nature, um, and then being really clear with my energy and boundaries. And, when that self doubt starts to kick in, like sometimes we just gotta kind of wrap ourselves in our little cashmere blanket therapy, I like to call it, and, take care of ourselves because self doubt is gonna creep in. And then the last piece is find a tribe. Find a tribe of women that, who are those women that you can call up when stuff hits the fan and you're like, you know what, today I feel like a failure. Maybe they're your business besties, maybe they're other entrepreneurs, but you need people that you can talk to and humans that you can talk to. So many people are like, they say like one of the biggest uses for Chat GPT now is therapy. Like I've created a lot of custom GPTs. I can use it for a lot of things, but ChatGPT is not therapy. Like, find people that you can talk to because they will pull you back from the ledge. And not that like AI can't be helpful in a pinch, but real human connections are going to ground you and help you more. And I always feel better when I walk away from a human connection versus anything I do online.
This reminds me of something I just had a conversation about yesterday, and the being able to receive from others. And I think that's something that a lot of women shut down too. It's a bit of hyper independence and saying, I can figure all of this out myself and I don't want to be a burden on somebody else. And so I'm just going to do it all myself. When in reality, if you think about yourself and somebody called you, would you be willing to show up for your friend? I'm sure you probably would be. And that means people are also willing to show up for you, and it's not a burden. And by you not opening up to somebody, you're actually, you could be weakening that connection, that it could bring them so much joy to be there for you in a moment of your, sadness. And if you don't reach out to them, you're actually potentially taking joy away from them. It's completely okay to reach out to people. You are not a burden. And I think that's just such an important takeaway from that is it's okay to ask for help.
Yes, totally.
So, now, I would love to go to that magical healing moment you had where the next day your friend ended up buying your whole business from you. I would love to learn more about that healing and what happened for you in that and what you experienced and how you felt when literally the next day what you were asking for just appeared into your life.
Yeah, I was excited and I go into work mode really easily. So then it was because I think we had like a month from when we signed the contracts to when the actual thing was going to take place because timing, it was getting near the holidays. So we wanted to transition it at the end of November so the new chiropractors could get used to the patients before that everybody goes on, Christmas break. So yeah, I had a month to get everything together. Like it was a lot because I always go above and beyond. So my my practice was like my family, right? They were my children. And I was like, I want to make sure they are well taken care of. So it was a process that we put together for how we were going to introduce them and, do the transition so everybody felt real comfortable. I sat down with the new owners and went through every single active patient file and, what's this person's things and, what I'm working on with them. So really above and beyond what most business owners would have done, but that's what I do for the people that have put their trust in me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, yeah, I remember So it was the end of November. That was like my last day with my patients. And then, December 1st, they took over. And I booked a trip to Estes Park for a couple of days just to kind of, regroup. Because that's a lot. It's like, oh, I went to school to be a chiropractor. I spent all this money, went into all this student loan debt. Now I'm not doing that, and like, am I a fraud? Am I a failure? Like the little bit of self-doubt creeps in. And so I really took December to kind of I had some people that were working with me on the functional medicine side. So they just transitioned to virtual, but it was kind of a slower month for me. And then I was like, okay, when January hits, like we all say, January hits, I'm going to hit the ground running. But it's so silly because if you align yourself with nature, if you really are in the feminine flow, January is still winter. It's
Yep.
why nobody feels like running out of their houses and doing all this stuff January 1st. It's like, it's still wintering. It's not, I usually feel the energy spark in March. Um, but yeah, it took a lot of time. And I think for me, like, I tend to process things in drips and drabs because I'm still not great at just like, oh, let's have this grieving process or whatever. I'd like to say I'm better at that, but I'm just me. So it kind of comes out in dribs and drabs. As time goes on. And even now, like I keep my chiropractic license active. I was at a conference over the weekend and I still kind of sit there like, should I shrink into my seat because I'm like not out there adjusting spines right now? But it's okay because to me, chiropractic is a tool, is a key in a door. And this is how I'm called by a bigger, greater power than myself to help women. I always, even as a chiropractor, worked with type A high achieving women. This is how I really feel like I can help them now.
So, what would you say to someone who is, in their 30s and 40s and they're thinking of going back to school and they're like, oh my gosh, like, should I do this? Or am I crazy for going back to school at this age? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Yes, so I've had this conversation a lot. One thing I would say is really do the soul searching before you make your choice. Like, what is it that you want? What is your why? What is your vision for your future? Because as I mentioned, there was a lot of things that I thought about that I was like, "Oh, I can't do that because this isn't gonna make me successful enough," or, even I even looked at, like, just getting a master's in nutrition, but that's not a doctorate degree, but why did I need a doctorate degree? I really thought, like, doctorate means money, like, it doesn't, and, look at, like, what do you need? Because in hindsight, I didn't need it. I could have done what I did with some certifications and stuff. But again, as I said, my ego needed it. And, maybe that was just the journey that I had to walk. But really do that soul searching. And then the other biggest piece of advice I would give is go find, like, yes, we're all individuals and there's very few people doing exactly, like, there's nobody doing exactly what I do with my energy and my personality. But go find people that are doing what you're doing and talk to them.
Hmm.
Before I went to chiropractic school, I talked to one chiropractor, the guy that was adjusting me. That was it. I never went and talked to and that was a guy. I didn't go talk to female business owners like, how is it for you? How is it for you? Because at the time I still wanted a family, right? How is it trying to raise a family and be a mom, and be a chiropractic business owner? I didn't ask like, how do you feel? Did your education pay for itself? I did. What is the working conditions like? I didn't ask anybody any questions. Um, Even when I transitioned to like a health coach, I didn't talk to people like, okay, how is it? Because there's lots of people that used to be brick and mortar people and are now health coaching.
Hmm.
Always go talk to people and it will help you make your decision because it will help you see the pros and cons and things like that rather than, as you said, us women, right? We just sit there by ourselves in our room with no support and struggle until like, and it's usually in an impulsive moment. I can't take it anymore. I'm just making this decision. Like I've
Hmm.
made so many decisions like that where I'm like, I can't stand where I've been. I don't know where I'm going. So I'm just making the leap because this is the easiest platform to leap onto. And sometimes that's worked out and sometimes that's led me down another interesting journey. So yeah, but again, tap into your network, talk to people.
Hmm.
And know that you can do it. Like you can reinvent yourself at any age. I was reading a story of a woman who is 59 years old, so almost 60, who is running some AI health tech thing. Like you don't think women that are 60 are really that savvy on technology, right? But she taught herself what she needed to teach herself and reinvented herself at 59 years old. So it can happen at any time. Like, and that's a conversation I have to have with myself daily because at 50, I think I'm too old.
Mhm.
And I'm not, like if my best friend asked me that, I'd be like, you're not too old. So why do I feel like I'm too old?
Exactly, and the stories that we tell ourselves, that is what limits everything we do in life, so that's something really important when you are looking at your vision and what you want. If you have those thoughts come up of, "Ooh, I don't know if I can have this," really dig into that. That is where the magic lies. That's where the work is. That's where you realize the tiny little areas that you've been secretly holding yourself back that you're not even aware of. And I think it's really important to call out in your story too. You know, you put in all of the time, the money, the effort to get a degree. And even after all of that, you still allowed yourself to pivot. You didn't hold yourself in that box and say, well, crap, I spent all this money and this time. I guess I should just continue down this path because otherwise all of that struggle wasn't worth it. No, like that was a part of your journey that led you to where you are now. And so where you are now, it sounds like your sweet spot of where you really help people is through, the midlife and the perimenopause and the menopause. And so I'd love for you to just kind of dive into your zone of genius now and exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm doing like a combination of functional medicine, functional nutrition, um, transformational coaching. Really, women come to me burned out, fatigued. I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who hasn't tried a whole bunch of things already. So
Hmm.
they're kind of burned out of that model. And it's interesting how it parallels my own health journey because as I got long COVID and again spent a ton of money trying all these different things. I did the supplement stacks, I tried some medications. I'm not saying that doesn't help some people. It helps some people. For me, it wasn't moving the needle. For me, really doing the internal work and working on my nervous system moved the needle. So that helped me step out of the role of trying to fix myself. And then I was like, oh, I'm trained as a clinician. I'm really good at fixing people, but I find women in midlife don't want another fixer. They don't want another protocol. They don't like, I don't have anybody that comes to me and is like, yeah, I'm drinking alcohol and eating sugar every night. And I think that's good for me, right? Like, we all know the things we're doing that are not helping us. We need help to realize, like, why we're doing it and what we can do and how, like, you don't have to give up everything that you love. People
Hmm.
ask me about my morning routine, and I'm like, I drink coffee first thing in the morning. Like, not the minute I roll out of bed. I do try to give my cortisol, a chance there, but, like, having a cup of coffee in the morning is pleasure to me,
Hmm.
and I'm not giving it up. But, there's other habits that I was using to, numb out that, yeah, I can change. So, yeah, so I got on a tangent. The work I do with women is, helping them kind of rewrite that narrative and figuring out, what is my vision, my health vision, and your life vision, because your health and your life are related. If you have no life vision, I mean, so many of us are like, oh, well, I don't want to have high blood sugar and I don't want to have high cholesterol. Okay, why? Because the report card on your labs matters that much to you? No, because I want to live independent and I don't want my kids to have to take care of me and I want to be hiking mountains in my 80s and still have my wits about me and like those are our deeper whys, right?
Hmm.
So I help women create their life and their health vision. And then I help them map out a plan to get there. Because most of us are like, that's what I want, but I have no idea how to make that happen. And so that's where it comes in. And yeah, sometimes we do need to use supports and, things from functional medicine and stuff like that. But it's less about that. So functional medicine really makes me mad because, you go see your functional medicine provider and you got $3,000 worth of tests that you have to go through. And, your stack of supplements cost you $1,500 a month. And I have done all of that. And there's no change when I did all of that. Or things got better for a period and then they got worse because I didn't change the root of the root causes, right? Like what's really driving all of that? Why is my immune system trashed? Why is my adrenals trashed? Like it's not just because I don't have the right supplement stack. So,
Hmm.
but sometimes we have to use those supports to get us through the crisis. because a lot of us, when we're in that burned out and fatigue state, it's like, all right, we've got to get you some energy to get through
Yeah.
your day. And then we're going to start fixing things and changing things. And then you have the energy to change things. It's like, okay, suddenly I'm not living in survival all day. I am able to thrive. I'm able to actually ask myself, like, what do I want? And I remember that in my long COVID journey, because I went from very fatigued, where when I wasn't working, I was on the couch, I was crashed out. And then one weekend it occurred to me, I'm like, I'm laying on the couch watching Netflix and I am 100% bored. And I'm like, well, this is a gift, because instead of being on fumes and that's all I have energy for is to, use the remote. Now it's like, okay, now I can start to say, what do I want out of my life? What do I want to be doing on the weekend besides Netflix?
Hmm. So I think, functional medicine definitely has its place. It's great, but it doesn't treat you on a personal level. It treats you almost just as a human body versus what is wrong with you as, Mandy, as Raechel, as you. And I think a theme that I've noticed through our conversation is you have to go internal first. Like, you have to go internal to your own self and figure out what it is that you want, how you want to feel, your why, all of these things. And when you said somebody asked you what your morning routine was, I think this is very important for people to know that somebody's morning routine is not gonna necessarily help you if it's stuff you don't enjoy doing.
Yep.
Like, I personally do not enjoy waking up at 5 a.m. There's not 1 ounce of my body that enjoys that at all. But waking up an hour before I need to do something, or 2 hours so I can go on a walk and do some breath work and do a little meditation and drink my tea, that is, like, golden for me. That is so fantastic. But waking up at 5 a.m. and going for a run? Hell no. Like, that is not for me. So really just get to know yourself and think of, like, if I did have time in the morning to do something that brought me pleasure, what would it be? And try new things. Try a lot of things until you find out your special, like, ingredient. So on that note of telling people how to find out what is it that I like, do you have any advice there?
Yes. So pleasure. Like, how many of us hit midlife and we're like, oh, I have no sex drive anymore. I have no libido. And I'm like, cool. Do you have any pleasure in your life? Because our generation has gotten so good at just, we're almost living the checklist life, right? I'm doing my things. I've got my house in order. I've got, work or mostly in order. We never feel like we're 100% there. But orient to pleasure. And like you mentioned, what gives you pleasure and what gives me pleasure and what gives you pleasure, maybe two different things. I actually miss running. I will get to a point in my long COVID journey when I am recovered enough to do that again. I've run twice this year. I did have to run on my 50th birthday. That was a gift to myself.
Of course you did.
It was a sad run, but it was a run. But I will get back there someday, right? Because that's what I enjoy. That gives me pleasure. But for some people, that doesn't give them pleasure. I actually do wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm also in bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So, but I enjoy that stuff. Like, that's my natural biorhythm. So yeah, find what brings you pleasure and have fun with it. And you'll start to learn, like, that the things you're using to numb out, they won't bring you pleasure. Like, yes, there are things I like to watch on Netflix. Watching Netflix all weekend, that is not bringing me pleasure, right? That's a distraction. That's just avoiding my life. So, what really brings me pleasure, and then do it. Like, if you want to eat the brownie, light a candle, have an experience, eat the brownie. Don't stand over the sink like you're doing something wrong and your parents are about to come in and yell at you. Like, nobody's coming to yell at you. Like, enjoy the brownie. Like, we can enjoy things even if they're a little bit taboo. Like, it's okay. It's okay to drink the coffee. It's okay to eat the brownie. If you're eating brownies all day long to manage your emotions, then we have a different conversation to have.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would say that, just like, I call it prescription vitamin P for pleasure. So go get your vitamin P. It's so easy. It's not hard. This stuff doesn't have to be hard. That's why people think, like, oh, I need some really strict protocol to get my health where it needs to be. I'm like, no, we just need to get back to a few foundations and a few basics. And reorienting to
Absolutely.
avoiding pleasure should be a foundation.
Absolutely. I mean, I was there. I was trying to mimic other people's morning routines, thinking that, oh my gosh, if I do what they're doing, I'll have their success. If I
Mhm.
do what they're doing, then, maybe I can have that for myself too. And when I realized what I was doing, I was like, this has nothing to do with what I want and what I want. I'm just trying to like project other people's lives onto myself. This isn't working. What do I have to do? Oh, I need to go inside and see what is it that I actually want? What does bring me pleasure? And you don't know what brings you pleasure until you try it. Maybe you've never run in your life and you're like, I'm intrigued. Like maybe I'll do the couch to 5K thing. And then you love it and you turn into a runner. Hey, you found something, but you don't know until you try. So Mandy, this has been such an incredible conversation. What words of wisdom, what advice do you have to our listeners? Tell them where they can find you, all of the things.
Yes, so you can find me at www.drmandymarzier.com, and I think my name will appear in this. Um,
Yes, and I'll put the links in the show notes too.
so that's my website, and through there you can find me on my socials and stuff like that. I'm really putting a lot of my thought leadership out there about kind of slow living and just reclaiming ourselves and things like that. And like my parting words are, after you listen to this, like, go ask yourself, what do I want right now? And just go do it. And maybe if you can't do it right now, you're driving in your car or something, the next chance you get for some free time, like, go find something that lights you up and do it. Like, you don't, it's like you said, you really don't know what you don't know until you try it. I bought some air dry clay because I was like, I want to do pottery, but then I have to go find a studio and all this stuff. And then I like Googled it and it was like air dry clay is like pottery, but you don't need a kiln. Now I haven't made anything with it yet, and I've had it for, like, a month, but, like, that's gonna be my thing. Like, I've never explored, like, do I have an artistic side, you know? Because 'cause I've always been athlete Mandy, and, I mean, to be honest with you, I'll say it on a podcast, I don't really wanna run any more marathons in my life. I ran enough. I would like to run again, but run more for pleasure, like, get out in the mountains, get out in nature, and run versus I need to go compete in a marathon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think parting message to leave with you guys is get curious. Get curious about your life. Get curious about things like I have a drum behind me, and that happened because I was at a sound healing. I got curious about sound healing. Next thing you know, I start collecting all of these little instruments. I had never considered myself like creative. And I think that's a box a lot of us put ourselves into. I want you to bust out of that box because every single person has creativity inside of them. But playing this drum, the amount of immense pleasure I have from playing my drum is so incredible. And I wouldn't have known unless I picked up a drum and tried it. So, thank you so much. Everyone just get out there, go be curious, go try something. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Mandy, for coming on. And I hope everyone has a fabulous day.